started the recording, so
It's a shame.
Commissioner Fergus will be joining us today. She said she'll be here, but since we have parts of the Brady Commissioner soon.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, let's do it. We'll call the Italian Village Commission meeting to order for March 14th, 2023. Next meeting will be our business meeting, which takes place on March 28th at noon here at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204. Next month's hearing will be Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 4 p.m. here in the same room. Swear in the staff. Should you state your name for the record?
Of course. Morgan Graf.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
I do.
Great. All right, we will introduce all the commissioners present. Paige, you want to start?
Yeah, Paige Schmeling. Brooke Michael Smith.
Ben Goodman.
Jason Sudi.
David Cook.
We do have a public forum today, I believe, and we can turn it over to you, staff, to get it rolling.
Yes, this is Chet Ridenhour. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your last name. But this is for the Short North Foundation. He'll have a couple of things to cover.
Hey, Chad, how's it going?
Great, how are you, Jason?
Good, good. Turn the floor over to you.
Great, thank you for having me. Morgan is passing out a flyer with a one-pager for the Short North Foundation. My name is Chet Ridenhour. I serve as the president of the Short North Foundation, which is a round table of community organizations in our neighborhood that come together once a month to have a discussion of what's happened, what's happening, what's going to happen, to really bring community leaders up to speed on the problems, the opportunities, the progress. One of those permanent founding members is the Italian Village Commission. We have not had a regular representative for the Italian Village Commission in a couple of years. I know it's been along COVID, and our board, like many boards, are still trying to come back in person with everybody. So this will be our final vacancy starting in March. We'll have 13 of our 14 board of directors members filled. I've got a one-sheeter here. We are all volunteer organization. We are a 501c3 and often serve as a pass-through for other neighborhood organizations that do not have that same nonprofit status. We have money for grants that we give out annually, and our board serves as the review of those grants. We meet once a month from 6 to about 7 o'clock at the Goodale Park Shelter House. We've started to use Google Docs, where we ask our representatives to shoot some quick bulleted updates from their representative organization out ahead of time so folks can get a pre-read. Also, our secretary doesn't have to frantically try to capture all of those details live in the meeting. So, and that leaves our meeting space open for more discussions and conversations. Sometimes there's treats. Folks will bring a beverage or refreshment to wind the end of the night down. But I just wanted to extend an invitation again to any member of the Italian Village Commission that would like to join us. I'd be happy to answer any questions or meet up for coffee or lunch to discuss further if anyone is interested.
I would be very interested in doing it, but I am the liaison to Italian Village Society. So if I were to do this, then somebody from the committee needs to pick up the society.
Yeah, when does that meet again, dude?
Sorry,
When does the society meet? I forgot.
it isn't a consistent schedule,
But it's not, okay. Okay, well, let's talk about that more in a second. Other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, Chet, is it equally beneficial just to have somebody from the Italian Village neighborhood, or?
The idea is to bring up projects, proposals that are in front of this board, or somebody that regularly attends these meetings that could be that liaison like David is for the Italian Village Society. Obviously, Ben, I know you made us aware that the agendas are online and so are the minutes. A lot of times, having a conversation about, what's important and what were the bigger issues on those agendas, I think is really valuable for us.
Yeah, and I can tell you from the time that I was able to attend, I was attending for most of COVID. It just conflicts with my work schedule too much to be able to commit to going to this every month. Typically, Chet sends out that document ahead of time to ask if we can want to paste anything in there. And then, it's nothing major. You just can jot a few notes if you want. And then when we go, we kind of go around the horn and everybody really just chats for a little bit and updates everyone on what's going on. So I would just give a very brief update of what was coming up on the agenda or what we had just passed. Italian Village or Big Village would do the same. Betsy would do the same thing for her organization. It was just kind of it's pretty loose, It's a good group. Everybody's really friendly.
So are you finding stuff out from the Victorian Village Commission that we should be knowing to this or?
Good, if you found something that was of use, certainly you could bring forward.
Thank you.
No questions, thoughts?
No, this time.
Shannon, I know you missed it, but talking about Children's Foundation, any questions or thoughts from here?
Well, we did move our meetings. They used to be on the first Tuesday of the month. They are now the last Wednesday of the month. Again, usually from about 6 to 7 o'clock. If anyone's interested, please reach out. Jason, David, Ben have my information. And David, if you can work out a swap for the Italian Village Society representative, we'd love to have him.
Yeah,
Rarely show up here.
That's the hard part. It's just, there's so much,
Yeah,
there's probably 6 or 8 hours in this.
I was just looking to see if this Wednesday was so far.
And Commissioner Trott's not here today either, so we can pass this along to her as well. But
Yeah, I think she said she really wanted to do it.
Perfect, done.
it's on record.
Second.
Okay, thanks for coming in. We'll see if we can get this worked out with David's schedule too.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it, this agenda. Number one, I'm sorry, staff, do we have anything else before we dive in? I guess staff approvals, right?
Staff approvals, but we do not have any this
Right.
month, so we do not have to approve. The only thing would be the approval of minutes from last meeting.
That's right. Okay.
For a vote on that.
So can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting, which was February 14th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
Tie for a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll abstain since I was at that meeting.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I guess we can dive right into our regular agenda. Great. First is IB 22-12-017 134 Warren Street. Do we have any representatives from that application here? Sure, come on up. Let me get you sworn in.
Sure.
So go ahead, you can have a seat. We're not quite. If you raise your right hand and state your name for the record,
Eric Maxwell.
and you promise to tell the truth and your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're gonna start with staff and we'll get over to you.
Before we start, apologies.
Okay.
I'm gonna check if that mic's up real quick.
Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Apologies. Forgot to turn it on early. There we go. Thank you, Commissioners.
That's good. Okay.
So this is 134 Warren Street, IV 22-12-017. This is for new construction. This was a continued application. Construct a story and a half, 2-car detached garage with a gable roof facing north and south elevation. Roof to include dormer on west elevation. South elevation to include a 2nd-story balcony. Materials include CMU block foundation, floral trim smooth, color to be Benjamin Moore Kendall charcoal, 1x6 hardy lap siding smooth with 5-inch exposure. Color to be Benjamin Moore Kendall charcoal as well. Balcony to have wrought iron railing, black with decorative smooth cedar brackets, black. Roof shingles to be asphalt. K-style gutters to be black. 2 9-foot by 7-foot 6-inch clothes coachman series. 1 garage door, style top 11 to be solid black finish. Main door to be 3 feet by 6 feet, 10-inch insulated steel, black finish. Windows to be Urban Elevate aluminum clad wood windows, black, which are from the approved windows list. And removal of existing north property line and installation of new fence sections on the west and east sides of the new garage to match existing fence along west property line. Application was originally reviewed during the December 2022 hearing. Following is taken from the approved December 13, 2022 Italian Village Commission meeting minutes. Commissioner Goodman would be more in support if a proposed garage was to be constructed of block in lieu of framed, of having the flat roof. For a frame structure with hardy board, he would prefer to see a gable or hip roof instead, refer to a balcony space that is integrated into the roof line on Lincoln as reference. Other commissioners would agree with a flat roof on a masonry block garage in lieu of framed. Stated that there are block garages within the commissioner area and do provide more leverage and setback in terms of fire spread. Commissioners are fine with the proposal, punch outs, and gutter types. Commissioners recommend if applicant were to construct a garage on masonry, they recommend the applicant to consider continuing a masonry type parapet wall where the proposed iron fence is located. Commissioner Trott agreed with continuing a parapet where the stair will be located. Stated that there appears to be a lot going on with the metal spiral staircase and metal railing. They are fine with the rooftop terrace as this location because this appears to be larger properties and the terrace would not be peering over. Applicant has submitted revised drawings since then. At the March business meeting, commissioners asked applicant to verify if there will or will not be windows on the overhead garage door, as well as the height of the adjacent garage along the final, with the final roofing shingle selection. Staff recommends approval of the application as submitted with any clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate with conditions. This is, we are recommending this since the proposed design fits in with the existing structures and follow guidelines and codes. The condition being for final roofing selection to be submitted to HBO staff prior to issuance of the certificate. Basis for staff rec is 311612, standards for new construction, and Italian Village guidelines, new construction, building addition, as well as garage and outbuildings, pages 40 through 41.
I'll keep it brief. We obviously were here a few months ago and made a pretty big change to the project. Client really wants to do wood construction, so we followed your direction with the gable roof. More of a carriage style garage, I would say, at this point. We do have a shingle selection. I can give you that today if you would like, Morgan.
Yes, that'd be.
I went out and measured the heights of the 3 surrounding buildings, if you want that information. The garage to the east is approximately 24 feet to the ridge. The house to the west, which is directly on the property and the alley as well, is 30 feet. And the house directly to the north that's directly on the alley is 32 feet. So we are the shortest of the 4 surrounding, or the 3 surrounding properties. With our proposal.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go through and see who has comments and we'll go from there. Anybody care to start?
Clearly no glass in the garage doors.
No glass in the garage doors, correct.
And the tiles that the shingles you referred to are on the approved list from.
They are. The client would like to use the GAF Royal Sovereign.
Just so long as
The
it's.
nickel gray, yeah. They're not on the drawings, but we do have a selection, yes.
Other comments?
Yeah, I'll just chip in that I think everything looks great, except I have a question about the dormer windows. Are those operable?
Yes.
They are operable. And the window in the north elevation to the left there seems large to me for this elevation in the building type. So, and it looks like kind of a typical 5x3 window as opposed to something that might be, you might more typically find in a small gate or, a smaller scale gable like this. So I think for my support, I would like to see that window reduced in size. And I would like to see you come back to staff with well, I guess there's probably enough detail about these dormer windows. So I guess I'll leave it at that. It seemed a little oddly proportioned, but in that I think the outside vertical elements might need to be fatter, like the inside vertical elements. But I will leave it to some of the commissioners to kind of double down on that idea or not. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Other thoughts? Adrian?
Um, I, I guess I'll just say I appreciate the direction that you ended up going with the point wanting that wood framed kind of carriage house look. So thanks for kind of taking those notes and adjusting. And I actually see the plans as they are. Okay, so I would be fine with approving as they are.
Sure, I think.
I think it's a great set of documents. Thank you for that. And I have nothing more to add. I think it's good to go.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody care to make a motion?
Can we clarify? Can I clarify? Would prefer not to change the window to the north if we could keep from it. It's just the garage is a little taller, a little bigger than a normal garage, again, just for that space up there. And I know they're trying to get as much natural light. There's so many trees. I know it's facing north, but they are trying to get as much light in that space. We didn't want to do another shed dormer facing the garage to the east. So I would like to keep, we looked at 2 windows there and we reduced it to 1 because I didn't think we would get 2 approved on that north end. So my only comment.
Make a motion with it as is to see how that
I
goes.
will make a motion as is.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I'll call the roll. David? Shannon?
Aye.
Paige?
Aye.
Brooke?
I
Ben?
No.
And I'll say yes, so you're all set. Yeah, to go ahead and just go with staff to get everything finalized.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to the second application. Uh, 1160 North High Street and 1174 to 116 North High Street, which is IV 230207. Team, once you get settled in, we'll go down line, introduce yourselves. All right. You ready? Okay, raise your hands and state your names for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, David Meehan. John Barnes.
And you all promise to tell the truth, the best you're able to in your testimony this afternoon.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, great. Let's start with staff and then.
This is a continued application. Proposed work description is to modify the existing garden building located at 1174 North High Street and to utilize the service parking lot 1160 North High Street to allow the site to accommodate a 10-story building consisting of 60 units with ground level retail space and structured parking. Parking entrance to be located on east elevation, structured parking to be semi-automatic, 3-level parking system with 60 parking spaces. Site development will include new upgraded utility services, sidewalk repair, replacement, reconfiguration of the stone wall parking lot, and new landscaping. Portion of the existing garden building to remain as a standalone facade, main entrance to building to be set back. Materials include brick veneer, metal panel, light and dark, aluminum windows, railings and storefront, glass structure for 10th floor wellness area, and living wall along west elevation. Staff analysis, the garden building is a single-story commercial building, glazed tile block facade, rust-colored tile at the base, glazed blue tile around the doors and windows, the majority of the facade faced with buff-colored tile. Structure is present in 1951 Sanborn map with property transfer mentioning a transfer in 1940. The earliest directory listing for a commercial building at this address was Ralph Croft Used Cars in 1939. Placing the structure at the contributing period both nationally and locally. Originally, the building was constructed for automobile sales, service, and repair industry, and then turned into a restaurant in the 1940s. It is identified as a contributing building as part of the Short North Design Guidelines, architectural inventory, and is representative of mid-20th century commercial development on High Street. There have been not many changes to the exterior of the building, as stated from a previous hearing. Approval 1999 for aluminum doors and window frame change, and in 1992, 1984, change in signage, painting, and type lighting. Application was previously reviewed at the past February hearing. For the commissioner comments, would you like me to read those out loud since most or some weren't here from last hearing, or?
I have read them. I'm okay. Do others want them to be read out loud?
We are.
Okay.
Then I'll just go from comments for the March business meeting. Commissioner stated and requested the following: applicant to identify what specifically has changed from the previous submittal, Commissioner recommended removing the graphics from the building. Commissioner stated that there does not appear to be articulation of the lot lines done architecturally, as was suggested at a previous hearing. Will need to be discussed further at the hearing. Applicant has submitted a list of changes related to the provided materials packet, new sheets to include page 4, which is a neighborhood history, and page 41, which is an enlarged exterior perspective, page 42, living wall design intent, and page 45 for a typical wall section. The revised proposed building design itself does not follow the Short North Guidelines or City Code 311612 in terms of context, street alignment, height, scale, rhythm, the proportions of openings, materials, and compatibility. New construction should not visually overempower contributing buildings, particularly at the street level. Majority of the surrounding structures to be 3 stories or less. The current proposed structure is still being 10 stories. Applicant is retaining some of the glazed tile facade, but is intending on removing the glazed tile bulkhead from the facade, as well as window openings and original entrance. Apologize, I've got my papers a little out of order. One second, all. Yes, please, thank you. Somehow it got disorganized. I apologize. Thank you. We're good. Sorry about that. Staff recommends the commission continue the application to offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. Basis of staff recommendation is 311612, standards for new construction, as well as Short North Guidelines, height massing, pages 322 and 323, and Short North Guidelines, new construction, pages 327 and 328. Thank you.
Well, I think that's a good summary. We know that there were comments from the business meeting that we've responded to, so we're happy to answer any questions.
Let's start with questions.
Yes,
What page is that?
that's the green
Oh,
one.
I see, I see.
Well, okay, since we're talking, I'll talk.
Sounds good, all right.
So sorry for interrupting. Can we shift the mics down one, just so?
If everybody has one, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There we go, now we're back in business.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for listening to a lot of comments. I am encouraged by your efforts. There is one big looming thing for me, but I want to first address the demo portion of this because that's got to be part of our comments no matter what. So I will say that generally speaking, I would support the demo given this proposal, this applicant's proposal for how to reuse or reconfigure the existing storefront. And I think it's a good pattern for how we can reincorporate some existing fabric, if you will, especially when we have a building that's kind of on the cusp of contributing. That said, the one thing I'm sad not to see here is any sort of expression of the lot lines. So that comment was from me. I know that one of my keywords has been rhythm, and you guys addressed rhythm in your own way, but the way I think of rhythm is the way you typically see buildings implement on the streetscape as it is. You do have sort of a rhythm of your own that's expressed to High Street with the projection and recession of certain volumes, voids, the balconies and the window masses. But to me, the square, the rectangles don't really relate to the rhythms of the street that we have already. So I would have hoped that as a compromise, that if we could have shifted one building back by, 8 or 6 or 10 feet along column line G, that would have been one way to give some homage to what was happening in terms of rhythm of lot widths on High Street in that place. And if that would have occurred, I could be much more supportive of the mass and the height and the location of this proposal, which I think is handsome, but I just think it needs to be a touch more responsive to the lot widths in the on this block. Therefore, I'm not sure I'm supportive of the project. That's the bottom line.
Can we respond or should we wait?
Why don't we just go around and get the initial comments and go back and forth? So Shannon, you want to jump in?
I think I am more comfortable than I was about not having that articulation. I'm still concerned about getting rid of the knee wall on the historic facade. But, I'm open to see what the rest of the commission says. And then other than that, I'm pretty supportive of the project at this point. To me, that's kind of my biggest thing on this project. I'm fine with the height. It's right across the street from Jackson, which is that 10-story, I guess it's in here, isn't it? It's 10 stories, 8 stories or something. And it is, when you're standing on the street, I think if that facade is capped with a green wall, I don't think you're gonna really notice what's up in the air behind it as much. We're very rarely standing where I'm sitting and looking at a building in this way. So really, that's my only comment at this point.
Paige?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the way I think the facade is being somewhat preserved as like a relic. And I think amount of demo and the amount of like what we're saving about the facade is quite nice. I do wonder maybe if there's a way to let the facade and have some breathing room a little bit more from the new building. Not exactly sure where we can push and pull there, but I think yeah, I guess giving it some breathing room separation from the new build, and maybe even looking into how there's some really cool programmatic elements in this building. Is there maybe a way that you could bring that down to that street level within that, I guess, existing preserved facade? And then on top of that, also just making sure we keep in mind like security and safety while we're keeping this relic there. And then the only other item as well that I wanted to talk about was the I guess the way the building kind of projects over High Street as you move up. I know we're trying to gain some more space there, but I think something about the proportion of that front face of that building, so how it presents itself pretty and like narrow and tall. I do wonder if instead of continuously projecting out towards High Street, maybe that top row of rectangles could be pushed in a foot or something to kind of help with that overbearing with high. I'd love to just hear you guys talk about opportunities there, but I also know we need to look at it from like a pedestrian view and what they'll be experiencing too, not necessarily this image that we're looking at. But I do think there is quite a bit of lower, shorter buildings around this so that when you're walking up and down High Street, you will see that in the distance. And just wanted to say that appreciate the data line that was taken into consideration with the rest of that street. And yeah, really those were my two comments and wanting to kind of hear more was the letting that facade breathe a little bit, maybe bringing some of that function down to that space, and then the proportion of the narrow width with the building kind of extending over High Street.
Sounds great. Brooke?
Yeah, I, I don't have a heck of a lot to say. I do wonder about, I think the way that you've preserved the existing facade is fine for me. However, I do wonder about the front door. The entry plaza door seems to be right on center with one of the existing columns, and it feels a little awkward. And I wonder if maybe your storefront or curtain wall could, I'm assuming that's new, since that's the new part of the facade, if that could be reworked a little bit, so the entry isn't obscured by that column, and, you know, it might be a little bit of a walking hazard, but other than that, I am good. I think that you've corrected or made adjustments to the facade. The checkerboard thing has gone away, and that was a little jarring for me. I still think it's tall, but I get where you're going with this thing now. And I think the way that you've handled the material choices has basically, in that applied manner, has taken away my concerns about how big the building feels. I think it'll be a bigger thing from people driving than people walking, as far as how they perceive the building. But again, I think the last time we met, someone brought up this height of the buildings, like the Joseph, and that you've clearly illustrated. I think those work really well because they're closer to downtown, but this building eventually is going to be closer to downtown, more than likely. So I'm okay with this. I did like the green wall before it became a jungle. But I know there were, there are differing opinions on that. That's all.
I think my opinions are well known by now, since you got it published in the Business First even. But I will go on record and say that, fellow commissioners, did you listen to Morgan when she talked about recommended guidelines of things that are not overwhelming and being more compatible? And I don't see how the upper floor, the structure on top, does it. It's too forward to the street, it's too tall. I thought there was also supposed to be, applicant was supposed to be doing a shadow setting. That was talked in one of the business meetings, which I think it overwhelms the neighborhood on both east and west direction. And this is an extremely strict, we always talk about saving the garden building, but the whole block is a very special block of showing mid-20th century. And I don't think this piece on top is compatible at all. It will not positively for this.
Just a couple quick comments. First, the stuff that I like, I definitely appreciate the kind of void and solid approach more now that it's more monochromatic. I think it's pretty effective. I think the shadows, it's going to be a pretty effective way to tap balconies that are a little less than either fully protruding or fully recessed, and it gives it that variety. So I think that turned out well. And I also think that applying that to the east elevation is a nice touch in that it starts to set up that view of not only of the neighborhood, but from the neighborhood. And, it doesn't feel like the back of the building. I think that's pretty effective in making it feel like it's incorporated as part of an overall view in some ways that we don't get all the time on high street buildings. I think that your approach to High Street's generally good. I will say one of problems with having a rendering that I really fall in love with is it shows how cool it looks when the mulligans and the knee wall are still in there in one of your renderings. Saw that, I was like, that looks pretty awesome, but then it actually wasn't in there in the real design. So again, I can live with it. I just thought it had kind of a really sung to me, seeing it as almost like this little cool pop out, feeling like a real old storefront that was there. I think what you're doing is fine. I get it. It's hard to keep that space. It's kind of like that balance between having it as a little bit of a tribute that's removed from the building, which I do understand. And I see what you're trying to do as opposed to integrate it as a true front entry, and that's okay. And so I can live with that. That being said, I think it would be useful as maybe you have this detail somewhere, but particularly going through the process, if you get approval or work with staff to understand sort of what the insides of those pillars are going to look like, because it wraps around at the door, but then it doesn't wrap around the other ones. And I'm not asking you to Frankenstein in old pieces that you salvage, but just whatever that is, so it feels like it has some sort of architectural value to it and less of just a total. So the living wall, again, I like the living walls. I also have seen like more often than not them not be great in Ohio. So I think the one thing I would like is and I don't know if we've done this before with this particular approach, but if there's some method that if it just doesn't work out, you can pivot and it still would look okay, if it came down. Like I saw your picture, which I appreciate of it without the plants, and then there's still the buckets up there. And again, I've seen some decent ones. I just often see bad ones. And I think it has a lot to do with the constant maintenance of it. And I'm just trying to think of this building 10, 15 years down the road. I'm thinking of one in particular in Cleveland in the Hingetown neighborhood, and it's pretty cool, but it's also like on an alley. So it feels a little funkier, and it's like, okay, that it's a little more rugged, whereas this is right on High Street. I think if it's cool, it'll be amazing, but I also think if it's not cool, it'll be kind of rough down the road. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's just a little bit of a pause for me to make sure that thing functions as Mark lined it. That's really all I have at this point. I want to hear what you have to say in response to all of our comments, and we can just kind of go from that dialogue. So take it.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate your comments. And let me just say that we have heard your comments from the beginning, including the last business meeting. We are listening to all of your comments, and we're responding in ways that we think is the most appropriate. So I'll try to do it in order. Maybe I'll get out of order a bit. But so Ben, we hear your comments and your desire to mark that lot line. We understand that. And believe me, we tried really hard to make that happen in a successful way with this building. We could not find a way that we thought was a real positive. It was a value add for the building. The pattern that we established is from, like north to south lot lines, and it's pretty consistent. Once we start to sort of bifurcate that and kind of make a break, it just didn't seem to work very well for us. We did our best to do that, and I think we do it very successfully. Where we think it really matters at the storefront, it's very much, kind of a north-south expression. We think that's strong. We think that's successful. We could not find what we thought was a successful way to do that at the top, on the upper floors without just completely starting over.
Yeah, when we did that, rather than it reading as a form of kind of in and outs, it read as a diamond and an X, because those extrusions and kind of intrusions weren't reading together. It kind of got very like graphic, almost like a Tetris piece. And that wasn't the intent. We kind of wanted it to be more subtle of a form and not kind of two halves of.
So I hope you believe that we really tried. We really did. But we want to incorporate as many comments as we think really makes the building a better building. And I'm not saying your comments are inappropriate. I think they're actually really good comments. In this particular case, we really don't think that they make it a better building in this case. At the ground floor, it does a really good job. Now, I will also say, I understand the reason behind it, I think, in terms of expressing this kind of pre-established rhythm. In this case, I think it's worth noting that there is a building where the garden building is currently. There was never a building next door to the south. That was always it was a car lot, and I suspect if you dig deep enough, you could probably find out that that was actually an alley continuing from the alley across the street. So our strong belief is that that was never a building, and that even though there was only ever a one-story building there, that there was never that expression of these two buildings on these two locations that were expressed differently to begin with, as much as that might matter. So I want you to hopefully you'll understand that we tried our best and we couldn't find a way to make that work well. So in terms of other comments, there was talk about the sort of the contrast between the base and the top. So we think we have a good amount of contrast. We do set back, right, from the building from I agree with you, we're calling it a relic, in a way that really makes that wall stand out. That was our goal. In terms of moving it back another 2 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, we don't really think that would actually make that any stronger. Maybe you were also talking about just the base at the second level, the top of the second level. And that's where things get difficult in terms of the amount of space we have. We've laid out the units as efficiently as we can in a way that makes the building work as our project. And to move the top wall back, several more feet would really require us to delete a unit all the way up. That's kind of because they're all stacked. So we did our best to create the contrast to accomplish visually what you're talking about. And we don't think that moving it back would be worth it in terms of losing units in the building and not really in the end creating as much of an offset as maybe you would like to see. So we did try our best. As far as the knee wall on the remaining wall, the relic, our thought about that, maybe you can explain.
Yeah, so we looked at it, and it was really that balance of keeping as much as we can, but also being really aware of the safety issue and not having it be too enclosed where it's somewhere you could kind of hide out in. So it's really finding that balance. We did incorporate more columns to make sure that was there as much as possible. I do agree that the door needs to be centered back. The main front door of the building needs to be recentered into the main entrance of the garden building. That can be slid back. I think we slid it to play nicer with our elevators. We can slide it back to play nicer with the garden buildings. I think that access is more important. That'll really be the front door of the project. And then the intent of that ground floor space, it's the entry for the apartments, but also it's a tenant space, 2-level space. So the idea is to really make that an active entry, welcome porch, kind of active space when you walk in. So that relic, you're actually kind of sitting within it. It's similar. This past weekend, we were at Columbus Brewing Company. They have kind of that relic wall between their space and the trolley barn. Kind of similar. That one works a little bit better because it's bigger, so you can kind of see around it, and there's not really places to hide. So we really want to balance that. If there's a tent, so we kept it open just to keep that kind of flowing, especially with as much foot traffic and activity, especially late in the night along High Street and north, to make that really open and feel like well lit and kind of that front door and porch of that space. So that's kind of where we ended, where we did. We will make a good point to what that back is. I think it's going to be just as important of what the front is. So that's a good note that we've been thinking about as well.
And then comments about the green wall, we are in complete agreement that doing that establishes a real requirement to maintain that well. I mean, this building we're not interested in building anything that is not going to be sort of presentable. And there will be affordable units in here, but there will be also higher end units, and I don't think any of the tenants in this building will want to see that poorly maintained. So in the end, like we really did listen to you very closely. We did as much as we could with comments that we thought were really value adds to the building, and we feel like it's in a good place that balances all of those thoughts and requests, and still has the best kind of outcome that we were expecting.
Just real quickly, just like a kind of typo on it. What is behind there? So what's behind those troughs? Like, just say, if you had to remove them, things didn't work out, what would be the option to?
Yeah, so behind
replicate
it, that second floor, that brick wall continues all the way across.
Okay.
And then on the lower floor, we have storefront. And then this is built as a freestanding
Oh,
wall in
okay,
front
so you
of
could
it.
really
So
remove
it's
them.
not hanging off of that
Okay,
wall. So
that
it's a
makes me feel a
fully
lot better.
finished wall behind it.
Okay,
And it
that's
sits in
great.
front, yeah.
That's perfect. That
Yeah.
makes me feel a lot better about it.
I think the typical wall section shows it a little bit.
I'm sorry, I just missed that.
But you kind of got to zoom in really close to see
Yeah,
it.
that
But
makes me feel a lot better.
yeah, the intent, we don't want it to attach to that or hang off. It's going to be a freestanding structure.
All right, other thoughts and questions from the commission hearing those responses?
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, I was just looking for a way to mitigate what is a very self-expressive mass. So if there had been a way to bifurcate it in a way, and I still kind of stand behind this, that it could have happened down one particular column line with a shift of the elevators. It could have been about expressing that two of the units, say, as we move down the plan from north to south or from south to north, they turn to a different orthogonal sort of shape. You know, you already have a orthogonal shape in the middle of the building. Perhaps the units could have begun to express that as they move toward High Street. And that way you could have had units in this similar program and a little bit of articulation of between two different halves of the building. And the only reason I bring this up is because in the end, you make a good point about, well, what is the module of the block? Because after all, there is the car lot as a history and so forth. And I think that that has a lot of merit, especially if your project were aligned with more on that car lot specifically, but you're kind of half on, half off. And it goes back to a point I was making before, maybe a couple months ago, is that if only this thing were on a corner, I think it'd be a totally different conversation. But it's in the middle, so it owes a different kind of homage or sort of dialogue with the rhythms that we see there. So right now, the rhythm of the undulating or the sort of in and out of the rectangles is very expressive and establishes its own sort of motif without that does not necessarily respond to the sort of rhythm of the street. So, and I could even gone along with that if these modules were stretched out or one way or the other, that they begin to emulate sort of the vernacular or the sort of texture of the local street. Then you can make that argument too, but it's a very specific kind of rectangle that you've repeated to make this checkerboard kind of thing. As far as the whole diamond effect that your associate talks about, I guess we don't know because we don't have that study in front of us, that shadow study. I take your word for it that that's possible. But I also think there are a lot of ways that this could have been expressive at the in some sort of bifurcation. And really, in the end, I just thought it was about preservation of the project because at this point there are concerns about its massive height or just its appropriateness in the middle of the block and those kind of things. So I'm glad you stand behind the design because it's a kind of a cool thing. I'm just not sure it's the right thing for this location per se. By the way, I would have supported if you were feeling like you were getting pinched on program, I would have supported more height personally. And I think I've spoken about that maybe the bifurcation or this sort of rhythm thing could have been expressed in height differential as well. But in terms of if you were trying to struggle to get with a setback as other people ask for, or some of these other issues, height could have been a solution in my mind if that was ever a hindrance for you from a standpoint of design or budget. I get it, but I'm just saying it shouldn't have been about my particular viewpoint of height.
Understood.
Okay, other thoughts, comments out here? Questions?
I guess I'll just say about the, letting that kind of relic breathe comment that you said. I understand what you're talking about the, distance you have from the new building to the old building. One thing that I think will make a big difference will be lighting on that. How we like the new building and how it's lighting the kind of old historic piece. And just keep that in mind, I guess. Something important I think could help with maybe what I was trying to reach for as far as that letting it breathe and letting it be its own item.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. Staff, you might come back with lighting and any other additional streetscape elements. I know it's the high street streetscape, so it's generally that, but.
So like final details for that, so.
Yes.
And we're more than happy, in fact, we intend to explore lighting and signage and that sort of thing. And happy to follow up with that.
So staff recommended continuing with that as at your discretion. You can call for a vote or you can continue to the next meeting. We're happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Well, if we feel like we'll get past, then I would call for a vote.
That is at your discretion.
Do you take straw votes?
We don't.
Okay, so I'm gonna roll my dice.
We want to go around the table to see how each commissioner's feeling about that.
Yes, that's your version, the version of a straw vote.
That's great.
Before,
Great idea.
just a suggestion, I know we've done it in the past.
Okay. Fair enough. David?
If you guys don't know where I stand, don't I?
Yeah, I'm generally in favor.
I think I'm not gonna support the project.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
We should vote.
Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have any conditions?
Actually, staff does, sorry. Since
I do.
Yes, we have some conditions. Let me find my paper. Apologize about that. But I have this organized, I'm sorry.
So apparently keep it straw votes. A long time since we had a big project.
Yeah, so there are a couple of conditions, of course, since we were recommending continuing, would just be for the final material list for the, the lighting, the landscaping, signage to be submitted for review at future IBC hearing, including variances as well, since variances are covered at the time you have to review. That would be all. Yeah, I think that is it. Another thing would just be, in light of future projects, because of course we'll probably see this on High Street. And this will be later, actually, so we will vote, and then I will state that, sorry. Sorry about that, but those are staff's conditions.
Accept those conditions.
Accept.
Okay, go ahead. Second.
Second.
Okay, I'll do it by roll. All in favor, Shannon,
Aye.
Paige,
Aye.
Brooke,
I,
Ben?
You want to rephrase that? I am not in favor. So, no, or is that where I thought we always had voted the affirmative?
We are voting in the affirmative.
You're just not. because
You're just not.
supporting it.
Okay, so.
And I say
I'll wait
yes.
till you.
So the motion carries forward too.
And real quick, I apologize about that. Of course, I lost my page again. There it is. Just in light for future projects as well, since we will see this, of course, the state before, just if we could share kind of the reasonings for the approval and support from the commission, just for record.
Yeah, I guess just from the demolition standpoint, I personally would say that I believe that the facade of this building is the contributing portion. And the one-story cement block structure was not contributing to the neighborhood. And so their willingness to preserve the front facade and incorporate it into the project was what enabled me to be okay with the demolition of the remaining non-contributing portion. Does anybody have any other comments or thoughts they'd like to add to that description about the
I
demolition?
think you've said it well, but doesn't that need to be its own motion
I don't,
decision?
do we need to?
Describing your motion.
No, it's just describing the motion just for the support.
I would say height, not that height isn't, I don't think this goes against our height. Obviously not variance, but it's not against our guidelines, but, the height follows the rhythm that we've created on the southern part of High Street and meets the rhythm that's being created in the University District at 5th and High, 6th and High, 7th and High. There's like a 15-story building going up, so it's not like this is like dying into campus as the last tall building. I think that we will continue seeing this type of rhythm. And it's appropriate because it is set back in the pedestrian scale of the building is still preserved.
Yeah, and I think that to add to Shannon's comments, that what's to the rear of this is a commercial block, which I think is also significant, because that's not always the case with buildings that are fronting on High Street. So it gives us a little more transition as well to the residential neighborhood. Other comments that people would like to make?
What I was referring to is I thought that demolition required a specific action. That's all.
Yeah.
So I thought that we
it's
might
up
need
to
to circle
staff.
back around and actually take a vote on whether
Yeah,
we're
maybe we can
demolishing
vote.
a contributing building.
That is true. You are
So,
correct. Would you need a vote?
might need to circle back around.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for
And
catching.
justify what the whys of that when we get to that point.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's accurate. Okay, so other thoughts in general that you want to add for reasons for approval, and then we'll talk about the demolition here. Okay, so can I have a motion on approval of demolition?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second with clarification that we feel, as you were stating before, this, please actually enter Jason's.
Split those to the other.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do voice vote again. David? Okay, abstain. I'll say yes.
Support.
Brooke?
Support.
Paige?
Support.
Okay, Shannon says yes, so that one passes. Okay, I think that's all the things we need to do. If I've messed up anything else procedurally.
No, I think we're good. Thank you for that catch. But yes, we've covered the demo, reasons for demolition and the approval of the overall design with those conditions. Yeah, we're good. Next application.
Okay, great. All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks for all your help.
Yeah.
We much appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on number 3, which is 137 Cedar Alley. Application number IV-23-03-0031. All right, will you please raise your right hand, state your name for the record?
My name is Stan Liu,
And
137 Cedar Road.
great, and do you promise to tell the truth in your testimony at the best of your ability tonight?
I do.
Excellent. Okay, we're staff's gonna give a report and then it's back to you.
Yes. This is a new application. This is for new construction on addition. Application was previously approved in 2006. COA number 0622B, but did not receive a COA since it was pending submittal of revised porch drawings. Applicant is proposing to construct a new addition on the property, include the attached garage with bedroom above garage, materials to include 6-inch wood simple drop siding, windows to be gelled wood windows, roofing to be GEF slate line shingle, trim to be wood. There will be 2 wood 4-panel doors and an 8-foot by 8-foot sectional overhead door, Wayne Dalton, 7400 Delmar. Proposing to remove existing concrete porch and steps on west elevation, including existing concrete walk, remove existing concrete steps, patio, and walk on the south elevation, remove existing shed along the east property line, removal of existing brick pavers, regrade and install new 5-inch concrete drive, install new sidewalk and entry porch on west elevation. Addition and garage design was originally approved in 2006 at the July hearing, but was pending submittal of final stamp drawings until revised porch drawings were submitted for final review. At the March business meeting, the commission requested applicant to provide light fixtures, specifications, and additional site photos of the surrounding alleyscape. They asked for additional clarification of the current wood porch portion is to be removed for the proposed addition. Commissioners stated that there will need to be further discussion of the entrances front and back, as well as the proposed setback for the garage portion. Staff does not support an attached garage to a primary structure. Per the Italian Village Guidelines, garages and outbuildings, page 40, we would recommend that new structure should be located at the rear of the property. However, the previously approved design from 2006 included an attached garage. Additionally, staff notes the application includes window replacement of the existing windows on the property. Replacement windows are indicated to be Radco classic double hung wood windows, not from the approved window list. Staff would request applicant to clarify if they're still proposing to replace the windows on the primary structure. If so, further evaluation and review would need to be conducted before the final approval of the replacements. Would recommend to remove this portion from the application for a separate application and review. Staff recommends the commission continue the application to offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. Basis of staff rec is 311612, standards for new construction, as well as garages and outbuildings, pages 40 and 41.
This came in 17 years. Coming back to me. Okay, over to you.
So this project was started a long time ago with my partner, and because of finance and all that, and we haven't done anything about it. So I like to go ahead and finish it. And my son lives in it, and he wants to get a little bigger space. I think it will contribute to the fact that it will look much better in that area. And we're gonna do everything special for the exterior part of the building, of the house. So I think it's a good thing.
I'm kind of foggy on where Cedar Alley is.
So this.
Cedar Valley is behind
This
Warren.
is- That's St. John's and. Here, I'll show you.
Oh, okay. So it's
I know.
parallel to Summit,
It's right
Summit
here.
and.
Yeah, it's basically tucked back in right by it. So, yeah, it's St. John's.
It's good, it's good.
It's like Fraser Third.
Oh, okay.
Past Warren, you're going up over the bridge.
It's like Cafe
It's south of,
Dinglin used to.
oh, and it's east of,
Yeah.
Third. Okay.
Yeah, it's the very last spot, right back there. Okay, so back to these plans. Does anybody want to start trying to figure this out? Oh, I see what's going on now.
I'll start to say that I think that probably the reason why there was an approval of this garage being an attachment is because we're on more of an alley type of frontage.
Sure that was.
And I think that that should, and I think that's still true. I think that we're more likely to, when we think about Greenwood and some of the other sort of alleys that have become quasi-development streets, that having a garage adjacent to or underneath a living space is not as uncommon. The thing that I'm kind of puzzled by is this whole setback thing that happened. I can't remember what would have compelled us to be okay with that. And whether it's inappropriate, I'm not sure yet. I think that, again, because it's on an alley, it's probably more appropriate than in most cases. And I think I could get behind that. The one thing that I am going to feel strongly about is that the connecting building just feels a little too utilitarian and not like it's doing a great service to the rest of, to the other two main structures, you know. So either A, the material needs a change there, so that it shows an expression that it's different from the other two gabled structures. So it might turn into more about board and batten. It might be some other kind of material. There probably should be more windows to be more expressive of that building. And the roof line itself may actually want to come down below the gutter lines of the other two main buildings. So those things would help allow that center bridge building to kind of defer to the other structures, which I think is important to establish rhythm and sort of relative proportion of these structures on the streetscape. So those are my thoughts. I mean, I think we'll want to circle back around and talk about windows specifically, but it's my thoughts.
Okay, Rick, you have some ideas?
I think those are really good suggestions that Commissioner Goodman just made, because this is a little oddball of a project. I am surprised that it got through the commission years ago, but it did. And I think those were really relevant comments. I think that, and then just, like, it's going to evolve, I think, based on what you'll hear today. But for instance, the size of the window over the garage door seems out of proportion to the point where it may not allow the type of light fixture that we typically see over garages with the gooseneck. So that you might want to think about, proportions of windows and lighting. And just that material or color change, I think, would really be helpful. And height, that was good. I think that's all for now.
Paige?
Yeah, you want to echo just the fact that this is on an alley and how that kind of changes how we're discussing some of this. So I think that helps the case for the garage door on the front of the facade. And I think the pushback, I'd assume is due to, or the setback of that new structure is due to creating an additional parking spot on that driveway in front of the garage, as well as kind of ease of entering and exiting that garage. I also want to say that I really appreciate how there is the kind of two front-facing gables that are appropriate scale to that alley with that connector piece. I think Commissioner Goodman made a good point of maybe a difference in siding or something could help that connector piece set back a little bit. But I think the kind of offset in window heights from the two different peaked areas. At first I was wondering if these should be in line, but I actually don't mind them being offset right now. Maybe the proportion of that window above the garage door will change, but I'm okay with that uneven alignment because I think generally as you're walking down an alley or a street, you get houses this close together that have those like different characteristics because they are separate homes. And then I just wanted to note that I appreciate the setback of the porch, and I think that's a nice way to handle the entry as it is seen elsewhere in different Italian village homes and appropriate for the area.
I have one other comment, if I can jump back.
Sure.
For just a second. I think also it would be more helpful not to have a concrete pad in front of the garage and maybe a more pervious material rather than concrete. It seems a little out of place and suburban.
Can I just add something else? On the two proportion, there's not enough space to match the same. That's why the thing is a little bit narrow because the space wise, and we have to get away from the border a little bit further down there. So that's why it was designed.
Okay.
I kind of agree with Paige with everything. I think, in summary, and then with Brooke about the garage door, I think that you might want to go for a more traditional garage door with goosenecks over it. Want to see the goose, basically see the lighting on by the front door as well. The front door as shown is also maybe not fully appropriate. And so that should be replaced, which I think you could just work with staff on. What other thing did I have? The windows, if you could work with staff to identify a new window product. I think the ones you chose like aren't even in existence anymore, which is why they're not on our approved window list. But so, you know, update that window selection, and otherwise. And then the materiality, I think like what Ben said, I think showing that these are separate structures, you've shown that with the setback, and then if you show that with the materials as well. I think it's a really quirky, cool way to address the fact that it's on an alley and on a very weird lot, and I think the way you're doing this is actually how it would historically have been added onto in the past as well. So I think it's gonna end up looking pretty natural.
David?
I have nothing else to add. I support my fellow commissioners' comments to the applicant. So,
Yeah, this is a strange lot for sure. I am having like big instances of remembering. And one of the things I recall is, and I look, now I see on the map, is that Columbia Gas building right next door.
Yeah, they moved that out.
Yeah, because I remember we talked way back when about accessing through the other direction and things like that. Yeah, typically I prefer if it was, you know, the drive past the house and the garage in the back that was turned to the side. This is just a weird lot. We got a lot of garages here, which I think are probably gonna remain. Some semblance of garages, at least for a little while. We may get some conversion into carriage houses, but for those reasons, I'm in accordance with my fellow commissioners. It's very unusual, and I would dare to say a non-precedent setting lot. So I'm not sure where we're gonna find another lot exactly like this wedged up against the freeway with the Columbia Gas. So, okay, so what do we think we need?
I'll make a motion.
Did staff, hold on, give me a second. Staff, do you feel like you have all the information that you need to move forward, or would you need something else resubmitted?
Well, I mean, based off the comments that have been mentioned, I would recommend just continuing it to maybe address some of those things with the different materials and maybe the lowering of the height of that connector piece. With the final, you know, materials of like light specifications, maybe the door change would be our recommendation to continue it with, that would also, we could remove the windows from this application as well. Or continue that portion as well, as long as we get all the materials for that. But that's
Okay.
what we would currently.
So the staff's recommending that we continue the application, which basically means they continue to work with staff and revise the details that we've talked about today. If you do that, there may be a chance you don't even need to come back, depending on if we staff approve it at another meeting, or you might have to come back. I can't guarantee that, but are you okay with
Yeah,
taking a course of
I'm
action?
not gonna get all the detail, Morgan.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, write everything out.
Thank you.
No worries.
So many things
All right
happen.
with that.
Fine.
You gonna second it?
My own motion?
You just stole your vote. I think continue.
Oh, right. We can continue. Yeah, okay.
Everybody's moving to continue.
I'll second to both of them.
Everybody's seconding and everybody's moving. Voice vote, all in favor of continuing the application, whatever the heck number this is. the application.
IV 23-03001.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Keep working with staff, we'll get it figured out. Okay, so, number 4, is 85 East Fifth Avenue, IV-23-03-002.
Hi,
Hello. will
How are
raise your
you?
right- I am well. How are you today?
doing well, thank you.
Great. Will you raise your right hand, state your name for the record?
Robin Kiefaber?
And will you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, we'll start with staff. We'll go back to you.
This is for a new construction garage. Construct a one-car garage, measurements 20 feet wide, 24 feet deep, and 14.5 feet in height. Materials include GAF slate line weathered asphalt shingles with metal ridge roll, aluminum K-style gutters and downspouts in russet red. Window to be JELD-1 sightline clad, double hung windows in Mesa red, 30 inches by 36 inches. Siding to be restoration smooth vinyl siding, natural clay with hardyboard smooth trim, almond. Garage door to be 9 feet by 7 feet, Mar Heritage carriage house, steel bead board to be painted Mesa red. Man door to be right in swing steel, half light to be painted Mesa red or russet red, and 2 exterior light fixtures. Property was previously approved for new shingles, siding, and windows in July of 2022. COA number IV 2206-014. Approved new siding and trim in poor condition are to be hardy board lap siding on the property. At the March business meeting, commissioners requested the following. Requested additional photos of the existing rear yard conditions on where the garage will be constructed, which applicant has submitted. Requested light specifications where they'll be located on the garage. Soffit and eave will need further discussion. Commissioners recommended considering a higher roof pitch to be consistent with other garages in the neighborhood. Requested overall height of the garage from grade to peak. Include garage door specifications. Applicant has since sent updated materials and responded to their question. Additional photos have been submitted. Light fixtures have not been noted on the revised drawings and will be simple and contemporary per IBC guidelines. Applicant has not finalized the fixtures, but is leaning toward a gooseneck light fixture. For the soffit and eaves, they will be comprised of composite cement or composite wood, smooth finish, and will be closed. The overall height of the garage is to be 14.5 feet. Note, applicant is proposing vinyl siding. Vinyl siding is not supported, and staff recommends cementitious or composite materials such as hardy board or boral to be used instead. Staff recommends approval of application IV 23-03-002 as submitted with any all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate with conditions. The conditions being siding to be hardy board smooth to match the newly approved siding replacement on main structure in lieu of the proposed vinyl, siding to be 3 to 5 inch exposure. Proposed garage door to be smooth finish and to not include faux door hardware. All trim detailing to follow standard trim size, dimension, and location, i.e. corner boards, window, door trim, and eave trim, and line specifications to be submitted. Basis of staff brick is 311612 standards for new construction. Italian Village Guidelines, New Construction and Building Edition, and Garages and Outbuildings, pages 40 to 41.
Okay, sounds good. What do you?
Okay, what do I do now?
Oh, if you want to make any comments based on staff comments, or
Yes,
you
I
can
do.
just ask you questions, whichever you prefer.
Okay, on the siding, we are going with 5.5 inch hardy with a 4-inch reveal.
Okay,
It will be sage green.
Okay.
The trim will be almond.
all right.
The proposed garage door, they want to be a smooth finish. Now, I have walked the neighborhood. There's one garage in my neighborhood, in my block.
Yeah.
That's what I consider my neighborhood. It's falling down. But, so I went to Hamlet Street,
Mhm.
and the two alleys, the one behind and the one in front of Hamlet Street, and I took many pictures
Yeah.
of the different type of garage doors. None of them are smooth. They all have a very fine faux finish.
Gotcha.
It's not protruding, but it's not smooth either. I don't understand the faux hardware.
Yeah. Which was,
The faux hardware is just the handles, like on the front, there's
because, I get it, because it does, the door doesn't actually open like that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so
But-
just, yeah.
but in case of the garage door opener giving out, I'm gonna need a handle to be able to.
Yeah, just like a regular handle
Yeah.
on the bottom.
Okay.
I think we said we don't want to make it look like it's like a fake
Okay,
barn door.
gotcha.
It's not.
I'm absolutely fine with that. The trim detailing, you want to follow standard trim size, but nobody told me what standard trim size was. So we're doing a 3.5 inch hardy on doors, windows, corners, and eaves.
That sounds right. Does that sound right to you? Steve?
Yes, that does.
Is that right?
And that could have been, we can discuss that details
Okay.
as well, but yes, that sounds good.
And the light specifications will be 3 goosenecks. They're 12 3/4 inch wide by 12.5 inch high. They extend 12.5 inches from the wall. The round back plate is 5 3/4 inch wide. Mounting point to top of fixture is 6 1/4 inches. They weigh 3.08 pounds and uses 1 minimum 60 watt standard bulb. And I do have pictures of it.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah. What do we think on that?
I think the location is not typical. We normally put them over the door, to the side of with a gooseneck. It's very low.
Oh, okay, we can do that.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time reading your submittals here because something is cut off
Yeah, I don't know why
Lettering,
that's like
all
that, but
that, so I think we want to see,
Should there be two above it or one above it, David?
I think she could, because the width of it have two, that would be
Okay.
fine. And again, the location of the light above the man door is sort of an odd location.
So that would be straight above it as a gooseneck as well.
okay, I can do that also,
Okay.
no problem.
And so are there any other issues, staff, other than I guess we have something with the garage door?
Yes, it seemed to be the party board siding was covered with the 4 inch exposure and the trim detailing and the light specifications for those conditions have been covered so far.
Okay, we'll come back to the garage door in a second. Are there any comments from commissioners regarding this application?
My main concern is that the roof pitch is not a typical roof pitch. So if you, to be more appropriate, it'd be more like a 10 and 12 as opposed to, what is he got, 4 and 12?
4.
And I don't know if this seems like a positive thing to you, but a bigger door would be more appropriate in the size of the width of this
What
thing.
about 2 doors?
Garage door,
What about 2 doors?
you can do 2 doors.
I
2
prefer to
doors would
do
be very
2.
good.
I prefer to do 2.
And so you would want to diagram how those fit in there, make sure that you're happy with those. And I think that the Geldwin window should really be, it's not typically that proportion. That's kind of a developer window. It's kind of wide squat versus something that you would normally see. You might see a smaller window or a narrower window in this case. I'm talking now about the yard side, that window. And I don't think it'd be inappropriate if you thought about windows on the other 2 elevations, on the sides. Those could be appropriate as well. So there, I think the big issue here for you to consider, though, to realize is that it would be much more appropriate to have, for the community and the types of architecture we see, to have a steeper pitched roof.
Okay.
So those are my thoughts. I think the lighting things we talked about are right on the mark. I just wanted to confirm that the door itself, the man door, is a glazed door or not. It's hard to tell from this copy.
I think we have a specification of that, Commissioner
Okay.
Goodman, so we can scroll to that.
So, I mean, it's always preferable to see a half-light door, a piece of glass to let more light in. But, okay. And, that might not be, what is that, a fiberglass door or something?
On page 20.
Deal.
Yes, it will be skewed halfway.
I mean, the way that window trim works is not ideal, so, but frankly, if we get some of these other things, more architectural sort of overall issues solved, then that's some of these numbers.
All right, keep going, Sharon.
I preferred 2 doors as well. It's more standard of what we like to see, and you have the room. That's really my only comment.
So, Paige.
I agree with what the commissioner said, so I have nothing else to add.
Brooke, you have anything?
Nothing more to add, but just to echo the pitch of the roof, I think would be, it'd be better if you had a steeper pitch. And I like the idea of 2 doors. I think proportionally you'll like it better.
Dave, do you have something?
I don't. I would like to, this applicant has been before us several times. I'd like to hope be able to move forward on this. If these drawings got corrected, we could make it a staff approval.
Of course, up to commission, we can also do a,
Subcommittee.
thank you, subcommittee. Thank you, Commissioner Curtis. Slipped my mind, we can also do subcommittee as well for the final drawings for this, depending on how the commissioners feel.
It's up to.
Yes, I think the applicant has something.
In regards to your window, in the back, the reason that it's as large as it is, because there's no windows anywhere else except for the door. And we need some light in there because my husband and I are CrossFitters and we're going to put our gym in there also. Also, as you know, the crime's kind of high right now, and I don't want people being able to look in to my garage and see my equipment and want to take it. So we omitted the windows on the sides and in the front and only put
That's
it
your
in the back.
prerogative. I think I was just offering if you were looking for a light, but I think the main thing here, I think the commission needs to kind of lean in on this about this inappropriate roof pitch. So I don't think it can go to subcommittee until the committee has direction on that sort of larger scope item.
If it's a tent, we can do that. That's not a problem.
I think if the roof pitch gets changed and the doors get changed and the lights are put in the right place, I don't see any reason why it can't just be staff approval. It can't, you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
it came to you like that from the start, it wouldn't have been staff
Makes sense.
approval.
Hearing that, that's good.
Okay, so we want to make a motion with some kind of motion?
I move to approve this application with the following conditions. The roof pitch be changed to someone tell me.
10 and 12.
Yeah.
2 doors, lights are gooseneck over, 2 over each garage, 1 over each garage door and 1 over the man door. And then materiality, trim as stated by applicant.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we're good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
There's all kinds of, we don't have motions.
Good.
All the motions. All right, moving on to number 6, 1030 North High Street, IB 230304. All right, conceptual, huh? All right, so will you please raise your right hand, state your name for the record,
Yep, Mike Sabor.
and you promise to tell the truth in your testimony this.
I do.
Excellent. All right, staff, and then we'll hop on over to you.
Before you go on, I need to recuse myself. We're talking about this number 5.
No, number 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 5 is off the agenda.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay.
No problem. I have to get myself organized. Apologize about that. My papers are out of sorts today.
Fast.
All right, I think I have the right paper. All right, so this is the conceptual, this is IB 2303-004, 1030 North High Street. Proposed work description is proposing to alter the existing patio. Alterations to include relocation of existing pizza trailer, relocation of existing bar trailer, relocation of the existing privacy fence, 72-inch horizontal wood clad fence, trash enclosure and portable toilets, update outdoor furniture and fixtures, installation of a new wood timber and corrugated metal shade structure with a turf area underneath, installation of CMU planters in multiple locations, and installation of built-in bench. Application was submitted as a request for action, but due to not providing elevation drawings for the proposed shelter, CMU flower beds, and new bench areas, staff recommended moving the application under conceptual review. At the March business meeting, commissioners stated that the overall project looks good and appears to be heading in the right direction and are in support as presented. The exterior area is starting to feel more like a beer garden space. They did request additional clarification on the queue areas noted in the site plan. One commissioner stated that the form appears a little more suburban residential in nature and that it may not be an appropriate style for a long high street. Commission asked HPO staff to look into an old market that was located on Town Street for examples. Commissioners should offer design feedback that could be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. Basis for staff rec is short north design guidelines, commercial patios, and outdoor dining, page 313, or 3.13.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, for us.
So I think we've finally got some things together here that we're really trying to make this patio kind of what it should be for where it's at and what it does. So we're trying to orient the pizza trailer to be, I think, in a much better position for its cues, its lines, and its business. And then put something in the middle there that, maybe isn't a temporary tent, and we can talk about that if you guys would like to. But something a little bit more visually appealing, something a little bit more functional, and something that just looks a lot better. So I'm here to answer any questions about the proposal.
Sounds good. Brooke, I think you had some robust comments at the business meeting. I thought you did.
Remember that, actually. It's a lot better than it was in previous visits for me. I can say that.
Yep.
I think, as I remember back, it was Paige who had a comment about the style of the structure
Mhm.
and it seeming, maybe a little too suburban
Sure.
for this location, and I think she's right on that. That said, I think the idea of a structure is fine here. If your planters look like they're concrete block, and if this is, so this is not a temporary structure at all. If the idea that this might not be there for the long term, you might consider maybe some, different types of concrete planters.
Sure.
Rather than the block.
Mhm.
Other than that, I'm behind this. Thank you.
Sure.
Do you want to elaborate on your earlier comments?
Yeah, I'll first just say I really appreciate the overall site layout, and I think it's quite nice how it makes it feel more of like a pocket park, the way the structure is centered, and you get kind of room around that like covered area. But yeah, I think my comments on the were just specifically to the pavilion itself.
Sure.
Feeling a little bit with the like kind of mass timber look to it, or feeling a little bit more like it belongs in a suburban residential area. Just wanted to open that up to give you the options, I guess, of going maybe more of an industrial route, or really there's a lot of ways this could be taken, because I think it is a unique lot on High Street, but maybe feeding into more of the background of what High Street was, or the surrounding area, what happened in this area, to create maybe something that's more appropriate for the covering itself. And I think maybe that would help with even the like CMU planters maybe could remain as they are if that structure changes to something more industrial like that. But yeah, I guess that's what it is. Cool.
Yeah, I am supportive of the scale, the setback, the footprint, the height. I think that what Paige was alluding to is that I think we would have been happy to see it in a steel form.
Mhm.
You know, if we're talking about industrial, less than say like a block form or something like that, or brick. And if that appeal to you, I think that would get some traction with the commission.
Sure. Absolutely.
You think, David?
You go to page 5 and put it on the large one. 6, I'm sorry. 6. Would you share with us, is this new construction right here? Or is it-
I would say yes and no. So right now, the pizza trailer is oriented perpendicular. I'm congruent to the building, and there is a fence there. So it's almost kind of moving things that were there. So yes and no. So I guess in this instance, that would be a new fence, but there's still some stuff that was.
I'm talking about this,
Yeah, we would construct a new fence there, yes.
it's just fencing,
That would be just fencing, correct?
access, is there something, I think this has to swing the other way to get out.
Sure.
Or these doors should be down here, so it's not invading that, to get that out is gonna be a real issue.
Sure.
And if you have double doors. And access to get this.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
But I didn't realize it was a fence. Let's see it in a rendering. It's not all-
Those are the porta potties, aren't they?
Correct.
Right, you probably had a similar kind of fence already implemented.
We did.
You can see it on 11 and 12. Yeah, right there.
Something like that. Rather not have doors or gates on that. Just out of curiosity, what about ADA toilets? Do you have them inside?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. These the porta potties are really just to support the restrooms that we already have inside.
Gotcha.
Jim?
I really appreciate this. I think that we've gotten to a great place, by kind of like tearing it all out, putting it all back, which I know is hard to do, but I think seeing it like this was the right thing to do. I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think that it could either be industrial, the structure, or it could, pay homage to some type of horse farm situation. But right now, it certainly looks like I, bought a kit at Costco and put it in my suburban backyard, which, I get because this is conceptual. But the massing, everything is perfect. It's just the material and.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I like it. I think it's very intentional, which is nice because it obviously kind of is ad hoc over the years. As far as the actual physical design of the structure, I'll defer to the other commissioners on that. The thing I will say is I actually kind of like the idea of CMU planters and the fact that this thing's kind of like, bolted to the ground because even though it's not technically permanent, more permanent, and you can just knock those CMU planters out of there if you ever end up redeveloping this site or whoever redevelops it. So I like the general structure. I think you did a nice job. Do you have other questions that you want to ask us today?
I don't necessarily think I have questions, but our approach to this was we know we're improving a missing tooth.
Yeah.
So we intentionally did something that wasn't necessarily as permanent as a steel structure. So wood was intentional with the middle structure because, our intention, and I think I've told you guys before, it's to purchase this lot and do a better improvement at some point.
Yeah.
But we just want to make sure it's better for now. So that's why we went with, we intentionally went with something that was, I guess a little more affordable at this point, and that's why that wood structure is, is as it is. So, and we're also looking for something to do with the flooring as well. So that might be something we present in another month here. But we're talking with some architects and landscape architects to see what we can do with the, what was previously a driveway, asphalt driveway. So it's been asphalt so many years that it's actually above the sidewalks.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit limited without tearing out, 12 inches of previously laid materials, which is a little bit cost prohibitive, but we're really trying to do something better with the asphalt. So
I would also, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if I could clarify my comment, I guess. I think it's fine if you stay the wood route and just somehow design it so it just is a little bit more historically sensitive. I don't think you'd have to do much to get there.
Yeah, I think that's where I was gonna get at. And it was just, I think it looks maybe, and I don't want to put words in other people's mouths. To me, it looks a little bit kind of like a shed or a little bit more like kind of like a golf course-y kind of lean-to building, as opposed to if it was more like a beer garden pergola.
Yeah, sure.
So it could still be wood, it just may be flattening it out a little bit and just changing the approach. I mean, I think one thing that might be cool, and I am not an architect, so they'll all be like, you're an idiot, but I mean, I could almost see the whole thing, it just being a sloped roof.
Yeah, right.
Just that's angled or that's off-centered.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a traditional barn, but it's like funky or something like that. So that makes it feel like it was intentionally weird and wood.
Yeah.
Instead of it's like, wow, we just did this for now.
Yeah, and the hard thing we're trying to navigate with a structure like this is when dealing with fire, and that's why, and I appreciate everybody's time with the temporary tent structure that we tried to.
Sure.
Fire kind of killed that at the very last moment, but we need to be a certain amount of distance away from the two buildings, so that's why we're kind of stuck with something that is, of course, we wanted to be, to your comment, much more creative with what we did, but something like this would kind of fit in all the buckets. So we had to be a certain distance away just to make sure that fire was not going to.
Still,
There we go.
do I remember correctly that you in the summertime have movies?
We used to. We don't too much
Back in
anymore.
the old days.
Back in the old days, indeed.
Yes, I'll just echo the fact that if wood is the desired structure for it, there is different ways to maybe adjust that roof form to be a little bit less of that standard gable with especially with that like really strong center being those kinds of actions that bring it back to that more suburban route. But one other additional thing that could be cool too, if you're working with a flat roof or just a shed roof to keep in mind is like water runoff and how that's going to be handled. Maybe that works with your CMU planters or however you handle that.
Oh, sure.
I think would be a good call out to.
Sure.
All right, any other questions for us today?
Nothing.
All right, appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Cool. All right. Yeah, we'll be backing them up. We also have some stuff for the sign on the side of the water coming next month too, as well. So, and we talked about that a few months ago.
That's right. Yep.
Yep, thanks, everybody. Have a good
All
night.
right, thanks a lot. Okay, last one of the night, number 7, 39 Hubbard Avenue, Science Village Park, IV-23-03-005. Hello.
Hi.
How you both tonight?
Very well.
We both place right here, right for the state hearing for the record.
Jason Kentner.
Morgan Wade.
And you both tell the truth, to the best of your ability, in your testimony this evening.
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. Staff, you have anything for us on this one?
Yes. Yeah, so proposed work description is project will be undertaken by CRPD utilizing UIRF program, new landscaping, hardscaping, scope to include removal of existing concrete walk and invasive trees, walkways, gathering spaces, and a mix of concrete walkways, gravel beds, and unit paper for plinth stage and patio. Design for the proposed park was previously reviewed and continued during the January 2017 hearing. The application proposed the following: construct 4 mini structures of steel and important steel on the northeast side of the park for approximately 960 square feet of covered spaces. Structures include 2 pavilions, 2 miniature pavilions for children's playhouses, and a freestanding storage shed. Following comments are taken from the approved January 17, 2017 Town and Village Commission meeting. Commissioner comments: trees on the site should be at least 3-inch caliber, and the shed should be turned to echo the other structures. Pavilions and roll-up door might be better for access than a man door. The March business meeting, Commission noted that it does not appear to have a structure for maintenance or equipment. There will need to be an additional conversation of what applicant will be providing for the park space. They stated that there were past requests to have a children's park as well as outdoor dining and grills. They additionally asked if the applicant has considered night lighting and has further information to provide on the final grading to deal with previous drainage problems. Commission requested applicant to possibly organize the middle packet further to easily identify the different proposals in the packet. Applicant has submitted revised materials for Commission's request. Commissioner should offer design feedback that could be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. No action is required.
All right, sounds good. What do you have for us?
Certainly, we're open to any discussion and questions. We started this project basically late last summer. Had some early interactions with, we had a public open house and had some early interactions presenting some very preliminary ideas to the Italian Village Society at one of their social meetings. At this point where we are in the project, we've developed to a point where we've gone through some preliminary pricing and are comfortable with where we are within the definitions of the URF dollars. And pending this process, plan to start to move through city one-stop review with respect to stormwater, et cetera. So.
You want to talk us through the?
Yeah, I certainly don't, if we want to go page by page, we can. Basically, starting out, we heard some early, basically all the public feedback at the open house spoke to visibility and concerns about security of the park. And so we've addressed that in a couple of ways. Morgan, through her office, was able to coordinate the removal of, I think, nearly a dozen of the large waste, the 300-gallon waste receptacles, which had found a home along Hull Alley. And that had a pretty immediate impact upon vagrant occupancy in the park, as well as allowing me to go into any public meeting with a little win already on the table. So that's been well received. These are early conceptual ideas, just what we wanted any design to try to achieve. We want people primarily to move through the park as it has been a space that very few people move. You kind of get moved around it as opposed to moving through the park on a desire line. We also felt it would be appropriate to do some work to activate the edges or the external sidewalks of the park, and given that there are some sightline connections to High Street. And one of the questions we always had with back lot, quote unquote, back lot properties along High Street is getting people back into those spaces. being across from the hub garage, it's really nice that we're able to present some program spaces very immediate to that exit, as well as make use of some triangulation with what the wood company development is proposing on their first floor to really activate that Hubbard side of the project is really the gateway to and from Italian Village. These are, in terms, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In terms of, and I do apologize for the kind of avalanche of options. So we're really, as a conceptual review, just wanted to let everybody know where we're coming from and the questions we've asked. We had some, scale discussions and kind of appropriateness discussions about how to facilitate egress to and from the wood company's building without setting up a circumstance where the park, quote unquote, felt like it belonged to the building. And that's been something we've been really cognizant of, making sure that any public spaces that we create, certainly being somewhat in partnership of the ground floor program, but wanting to make express kind of gestures that these are in fact public spaces, and it's not about buy your coffee first and then sit down. So some of where we've landed with this scheme, I think does some really nice things with respect to drawing some invisible but perceivable lines so that people are comfortable in whatever way they're visiting the park. So, but they were also just scale tests for how much space functionally do we need within the park, because we are trying to operate below the existing amount of paving and reduce the paving overall, which we have done successfully in every design scheme that's presented. The most current scheme is really the latest. I don't know where it is in the slide deck, but it would be the last of those pages with those. No, one or two more.
I think it's at the very back, like the
Yeah,
last.
it's the very
page.
back. Yeah.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, that's the most current scheme.
So this is the favorite scheme. This is the one that you.
It's just, yeah, there are iterations leading to this. Yeah, is really where we're at.
So this is the one where you have the festival set up. It's this one.
Yeah, so we presented this just in terms of stakeholder groups. We presented this to Betsy Pandora, and we gave her a programming layout for how many tents, how many blankets for concert space, those types of things. Yeah, exactly. And she's responded to that with some different comments, but largely supportive of that, asking for like tie downs for things like that. But,
Can I ask a question so the places that seem to indicate pavers, there's an oblong.
Yep.
And are those raised? Are those quasi stages or?
So the oval, the elliptical one is raised to the building side by 2 steps by 1 foot of grade change, and it's flush to the lawn. And then the other one, which has been reconfigured in the later schemes, is flush all around and has steps that process down to Hubbard Avenue. And those were really, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just going to jump in here that one of the things that I've been a little worried about is that the way the wood building and the park meet and create a seam. And to me, that's a negative thing. So I actually think that having, if the dark green or the sort of pochade area is raised, I think that helps that. But in any case, to have this sense of hierarchy of that there's like a meeting of this plane and this plane with some amount of organic feel or grace, as opposed to just being a crease, accidental crease.
And the graphic of that overlay is simply an articulation of a 20-foot easement that is part of our work process with wood companies. They have that during construction. Physically, there's no.
I see it here, it's just all colored the same. So.
No, but it is all the same. There is no material difference on one side of the line versus the other side of the line. The materials become continuous.
Well, okay, so, let me just clarify what I'm saying. Is that the green meeting the vertical plane without any elevation or sort of mitigation of elevation or sort of scale seems like a negative thing. So flat hitting flat. to somebody's eye, it might seem, I don't know, formal, but to me, to my eye, it feels like it's just too severe. So that's one thing I'm concerned about, or just provide feedback. I mean, obviously, we're not the main stakeholder here, but the other thing is that for whatever reason, there's a lot of circulation that comes from Hall out, from the alley that connects Kerr to Summit. And so there's this flow that comes out of this alley heading down High Street. You know, it's, you know, when there are events going on down the High Street, or there's some parking that happens on Summit and beyond. And of course, there's a huge development that's even east of 4th Street that I think this alley and Warren become these conduits for. And so it may inform a kind of circulation that is not what you're showing here, but you might be able to flip or sort of express it at the circulation through the park a different way to either amplify, to help that dispersion, or, oh, I don't know, go against it. I mean, this one kind of goes against it. I don't think there's that much need for circulation coming from High Street and going down Kerr Street heading south, for example. So if the intention is to break the normal circulation, then.
No, we've really observed that through just one, the open house comments, and then also just observation in that basically this is a desire line from High Street using Hubbard to the Warren and street corridor that basically goes up to the Wonder Bread factory.
Yeah, I think then you gotta think with the other direction, because almost nobody is gonna be in the corner of that alley that you're talking about to this bottom corner of Hall.
Yeah,
And
like
I think almost nobody's going.
You mean they just go down?
Yeah, you just go straight down the street. Like when I come out of that alley, I'm going to High Street, so I just go straight down Hubbard.
Yep.
So I think this is gathering people toward High, and then when they're coming out, either dispersing them.
Okay, then my final comment is, I actually don't think it's wrong to have a relationship between the entrance of the Wood Building and the park. I think that it should feel like it's that they're shaking hands. So, and if it's inviting people to come out of the coffee shop into the park, I think it's a good thing. And if it's leading people to the entrance, I think it seems like it's intentional plan. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
From one person.
Just real quickly, just to clarify, am I right that the page is 14, is that that's the preferred?
yes,
Yeah. okay.
that's
So
an iteration.
That's the entry,
Yeah.
preferred entry, the way
Yeah.
it's designed. Okay, gotcha.
And it basically tried to articulate a little bit of dedicated space immediate to a service window on the ground floor of the Wood Company's building.
Yeah, yeah.
The little chartreuse area that's illustrated there with the yoga person, that has actually become a walkable surface, different texture, but walkable. So in fact, that's kind of how we're kind of creating the shrink and swell flexibility of these spaces, because we figured if you put a concert on that plinth, then you might have people sitting all between the stage and the building, and so that whole area becomes functional in that respect. And at the same time, if you're there by yourself, it doesn't feel like you're in a sea of pavement.
Goodness. I disagree that this is a public park, and even the easement that Wood Companies has now is just for construction. They're already opening a cafe on the park, which I think is great, and I've supported since 2017, since the last time we saw this. But I do think it's important that if we are going to request some type of change in character where the building kind of, hits the lawn, we need to make sure that that change doesn't create a space that doesn't feel public anymore. So I wouldn't want to see like a low wall or something like that. I think I'd rather see some type of plantings or foliage against the building, and kind of more of a garden area, rather than raising something or making it feel not public and that it belongs to those residents. So that's my kind of comment back to that. So not completely in conflict with you, Ben.
You talking to me? Oh, I was more referring just to plantings, not
Yeah,
hard.
then yeah, I think that would be appropriate instead of just like lawn.
No, it's not
Should have
lawn.
shown, right.
The darker green areas are in fact landscape beds, so
Oh,
they'll
okay.
have vegetation in them.
Okay.
When we work with Rec and Parks to,
Yeah.
we've worked with Rec and Parks to say what that is. I mean, it's all dense ground cover and low dwarf varieties of flowering shrubs. So dwarf varieties of oak leaf hydrangea, et cetera.
But by the way, I don't know if you're aware that there's art on the building,
We are,
Yes.
and we've been in contact with Mark and his team on that.
so it needs to frame that. So
Mhm. I think you'll see if you get further into the packet.
Yeah, I don't know that this is, on the updated ones, we included some renderings that are in process.
Oh, maybe it's.
I don't know if it's in the set materials, but that's material that we're hoping to present to the Italian Village Society later this month if they're having a formal meeting. We'd like to show them where we're at with.
They've had the one this month, you mean next month.
Yeah, their habit has been, at least historically, I always read them as an end of month kind of group, so. Yeah, which is the new information I got tonight.
Okay, and specifically from the presentation or the mention that I brought from the business meeting to the last society meeting, I was asked questions that I didn't have answers for. So I know you'll cover it in the presentation, but just so that I'm up to speed on it. What happened? No furniture in the park?
We have the wood companies will be operating movable chairs and stuff like that outside of the cafe. And then we have some seat wall height pieces in the park at this point, but there's no checkerboard tables or things that exist presently. Those are all removed.
What about kids' equipment, children's?
The existing play equipment also is taken out. That's in response to broadly feedback at the open house where at least the type of.
A reverse response, like
Okay.
why not? Why shouldn't it be there? There are people that use it, so I heard that versus the other side.
It's good to know, and I should give a little feedback. I think it was 2019, the society had done just a really brief, I think they had a meeting at Seventh Sun and an open house, like, what do you want to see? And came up with like maybe 5 priorities. Our department in late early 2021, we did an electronic survey. This is before we engaged Jason. I wanted to have some kind of, something that would help develop the scope for this design. So that was where we first started hearing the shift of not wanting a pavilion or shelter, not wanting the play equipment, and preserving as much green space as we could. And so even in the open house, that seemed to reiterate about the play equipment aspect too.
What about the existing absolutely awful done granite edging around that? Is all of that gonna go or?
We know where it can go if it needs to be preserved. It would basically, we have some places where we need edging at the bottom of that screen along Hull Alley. The dark brown hatch area is a same walkable ground plane. And so we would use that as a flush curbing simply to maintain a clean and simple, but invisible.
Just installed incorrectly.
Yeah, and think granite was state building period as opposed to Italian.
Can you address anything about the lighting that would be on in the park at the?
Yeah, so at present, we've got the larger pole standards in Hull Alley. We would have 4 acorn lengths along that same perimeter, all within the darker hatch area there, the walk line. Yeah, exactly. So just evenly spaced through there. And then we have 1 each basically at the corner where we're planning to have bike racks, basically where you see the sidewalks taper to at the immediate opposite corners there. Yep, there'd be an acorn light there, and then at the corner of Hubbard and Kerr. And we've talked about the possibility, and this is really a Rec and Parks question, of having some motion activated tree mounted lights within the park so that it could both not be lit up like the 4th of July all the time, but if someone were in the park after hours, we would get recognition of that in some appropriate way. And those would be tree-mounted fixtures with sensors on walkways, presumably.
Up lights or down lights?
Downlights.
Anybody else who hasn't talked to that outreach?
Yeah, I guess I'll be saying that I, agree with what has been, kind of said so far. I really appreciate the way that the park has been not divided up, but, treated very like carefully as far as providing function to the neighborhood, how it can be provided in different ways. And also, I think what you guys talked about on making this park feel very much like a public piece rather than belonging to anyone, I think will be really important for people to feel comfortable using this space and everything, which it seems like have all been thoroughly thought about. And I think all the visuals and everything are very helpful when we discuss things like this. So thanks for the packet as well. It's very helpful.
I will say, just with respect to the play equipment conversation, how and when it does, it is something we've talked about in terms of ways to do it where it's not overt, because in terms of having a park feel like it is not a tot lot, it is a kind of neighborhood place, but place, you know, that is accessible and engaging. We don't know if it budgetarily, those features would fit where we are right now, but in terms of space planning, the dark hatch area along Hubbard, as well as the quote unquote front lawn, are two places where we've talked about engageable, whether it be art or seating, that would kind of encourage, you know, exploratory play as opposed to a jungle gym type of piece. Yeah, yeah. And then some of that because it brings the necessary safety surfacing with it, and what we can kind of make invisible in the park would be fun. And also I have a personal kind of cardboard box theory about what kids like to play with.
Just like cats.
That's right.
Let's circle back around on some questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brooke, anything.
No, I think it's a great concept. I'll look forward to the development of it.
Thank you.
Very, very nice.
Trash cans. You said you got a bunch removed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where do they end up?
We basically found that they didn't belong to anyone, and they were kind of being used a lot of times by rental move-outs would kind of get the big deposit. And so what's the office, the waste management office? Refuse office?
Yeah.
Waste management may be nicer, but, they basically looked at the service and turned all the units that are on that park, so they now have the 60-gallon rollout bins.
Okay, good.
Associated with them.
So we shouldn't see those reemerge.
No.
All right, good.
That was like the best thing.
Oh, yeah, I was like, we're ready to have a grand opening after that. Call it done.
That's great. Any other questions or thoughts up here?
There was a comment in the business meeting about the stormwater conditions. It was just a note in the feedback, and I wasn't, it said, it alluded to existing stormwater issues. We weren't sure what that suggested. I know personally how the park drains or doesn't drain in places, but I just was curious if that was.
Is there parking along this southern edge?
No.
And then take that a step further, is there any cycling parking or positioning of KOGO or anywhere in the park or on the edge of the park?
At present, we have plans for bike racks along Hubbard at the kind of plaza entry and at the corner of Kerr and Hubbard there. Those things may shift a bit depending on how we go, but presently that's where those things are. And Chet sees me 20 times a week, and if he finds want for, that'll be a right of way project. That won't be our project.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions? Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Yep, thank you.
Take it out till the last of the agenda. So.
When I came in, I thought, oh, this is great. We're first. But yeah.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Any other business staff?
No, not at this time. We did have a discussion about, preparation sustainability discussion that we probably save for business. So we can maybe start that next time if you'd like. If there's any topics to be brought up about that. That sounds good.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right.
So all those in favor, aye. All those against, aye.
No.
Well, you can do it for the last. So you know.
I know that was the saying that we used to petition, we say, question. Yeah, support, negative, and abstention.
It's because he's asking you to say all those in favor and then you
Say
say
all
those
those opposed.
opposed.
Yeah, can.
If
That's
you
what-
really need to follow Robert's rules of order.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
you know, that's where it's hard to, if it's okay that we say, I'm against,
As long as the vote gets.
or
Yeah.
I don't
What
support.
they don't want us to do is.
I know what the motion is, I know the motion,
Yeah.
but in the end, the language, how over time, it won't be.
Yeah.
We go to each person and say.
Are we off the recording?
We are good.
I love that check. We're still can't get. I feel like.
I just